There are three things that darkness cannot contain: the moon, the stars, and the truth. All three will find their way through the darkness. Truth will often pierce its way through in unexpected ways, at unexpected times, and sometimes through unexpected people. Hello, my name is Lenora Howze, and you're listening to Secrets of the cHURTched, Revealed to Heal. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. I want to thank you again for your support and for tuning in every week to hear more about my journey to truth. I am inspired and encouraged by the many messages I've received from people who are being blessed and healed by my story and those of my guests. I've been told that hearing me share my truth is giving people the courage to share theirs. That really blesses my soul. You'll be hearing from some of those people very soon, but today, more of my journey. There's something to be said for being blessed with great friends. And when those friends are in the right place, at the right time, and for a specific purpose in your life, well, that's more than a blessing. That's God's divine providence. As you know by now, I was born in Pittsburgh and raised in the Pittsburgh area in the small rural towns of Freedom and Rochester, Pennsylvania. Yes, when the Howzes adopted me at 6 months old, they took me to their home where they lived in a town called Freedom. Imagine that. We moved from Freedom just a few miles away to Rochester, Pennsylvania, where my parents had a house built in what was then an all-white neighborhood. To this day, I'm so proud of my parents, two working-class Black folks building a house in an all-white neighborhood. That was not heard of much in the late 60s. Growing up, I was a pretty smart kid. I was an honor student in high school. I graduated as a member of the National Honor Society, and I had a host of colleges and universities offering me scholarships to attend their school. But the only school I ever wanted to attend, and the only one I even applied to, was Temple University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. For some reason, I really wanted to go to Temple. But more interesting, and for reasons unbeknownst to me, I really wanted to go to Philadelphia. I knew very little to nothing about that city except that it was huge and it was the home of the Liberty Bell. As a young child, I remember us going as a family to visit a relative who lived there, maybe once, twice at the most, but we would go straight to their house, visit with them at their house, and then go back to our house in Rochester. So we never really experienced the city, which made it all the more puzzling that I wanted to attend college there. My parents strongly objected, and for understandable reasons. Here I was, a young girl who had lived a pretty sheltered life in a small, suburban, mostly white town, now saying I wanted to move to the other end of the state, 300 miles away, to attend college in Philadelphia, in North Philadelphia, which looked a lot different then than it does now. Why not University of Pittsburgh or Geneva College, two institutions that were much closer to home? Well, here's why. If I hadn't moved to Philadelphia to attend Temple University, I would have never met the one person who ended up being the one who would lead me to my biological mother. Yeah. But there's more. The person who led me to meeting my biological father, well, guess where I met her? You guessed it, at Temple University. Yeah, wow. So I've said it before, and I'll say it again and again, that the hand of God was on my life, guiding my every step, from the home I was placed into to the college I attended, every step from the moment I arrived on the planet, and in an answer to my birth parents' prayer. It was at the end of my sophomore year at Temple University that I decided that I was not going back to my hometown of Rochester, Pennsylvania, and that I wanted to make Philadelphia my home. Another decision that my parents strongly objected to. In fact, they were pretty upset about my decision and actually demanded that I come home. They said, we're going to come and pick you up at the end of the school year and you're coming back home. But I was 19 and I was of legal age. So in Philadelphia, I stayed. My parents eventually accepted and even supported my decision, but that took some time. And now as an adult with, a child of my own, well, I get it. After graduating from Temple, I joined Deliverance Evangelistic Church, a non-denominational church in the heart of Philadelphia that had thousands of members even before the term or the idea of a megachurch was even heard of. The pastor at that time was the late Pastor Benjamin Smith, who to this day I credit with helping to establish my spiritual foundation as a young adult. But as large as Deliverance was, and still is, the Lord allowed me to connect with a small group of people who to this day are some of my closest friends. We shared great times together and we shared nearly everything with each other. And so when I received my original birth certificate in the mail and learned of my identity, I shared that with them too. One of my friends from this group who has asked that I call her Carolyn, that's sort of an inside joke. So hi, Carolyn, if you're listening. Her mother worked for the Social Security Administration. Carolyn herself worked for the state of Pennsylvania in the Philadelphia office. Now, I want you to make note of that point. Carolyn would urge me from time to time to take some action and try to find my birth mother. I'd had my birth certificate for probably a year or more at that point, but as I've said in previous episodes, really didn't do anything with it. So I initially resisted Carolyn's urging. It was just all too much. The story I had told myself and believed to be true about the circumstances surrounding my birth had suddenly unraveled. I don't know that I was ready to learn anymore about who I was and where I came from. And then one day, I was ready. And there was Carolyn's mother working for the Social Security Administration, ready to do what she could to help me. So after giving her my birth mother's name and date of birth, information that was on my original birth certificate, my friend's mother was able to locate my birth mother's Social Security number and, in essence, locate the woman who gave birth to me. And here's what I learned. I learned that she still lived in Pennsylvania, in the same small town that was listed on her marriage certificate. I learned that she worked in Pittsburgh. And I learned that just like Carolyn, she too worked for the state of Pennsylvania. Not only that, she worked in the same department as Carolyn did. One worked in the Pittsburgh office, the other in the Philadelphia office, but both of them worked for the state of Pennsylvania. Now I ask you, my friends, my listeners, what are the odds of that? What are the odds that I would move from the Pittsburgh area across the state to Pennsylvania, and of the 1 million plus people who live in that city, I meet and become close friends with the one person who worked for the same state agency as my birth mother did? Did you hear that? Two people, complete strangers, who by God's divine providence had a mutual connection. Me. When my friend and I learned that she and Marion, my birth mother, worked in the same department for the state of Pennsylvania, it blew our minds. We couldn't believe it. Like I said, what are the odds? But we know that with God, all things are possible, despite the odds. Remember that. And when God has a plan, he is like a master chess player, moving all the right pieces in the right places at the right time. It's really absolutely amazing. I'm sure you can think back to things in your life when God was at work maneuvering things, maneuvering people, and you weren't even aware of it. So here we were, armed with this knowledge about where she worked. And so Carolyn and I began to devise a plan for how I would meet Marion. So after weeks of plotting and scheming to come up with a plan, Carolyn figured out a way to make it happen. Since she and Marion worked for the same State Department and had similar responsibilities, matter of fact, Carolyn was able to call Marion without raising any suspicions. I can remember the day Carolyn was finally able to reach Marion on the phone because it took a few days. I think she was just as nervous as I was. But here she was, speaking to my birth mother, getting to hear her voice even before I did. After she spoke with Marion, Carolyn immediately called me. She could barely get the words out before I start shooting questions at her like, what did she sound like? Or did she talk like me? Did she sound suspicious of your call? I couldn't believe that after all of those years, someone I knew actually heard my birth mother's voice. So here was the plan. Carolyn called Marion under the guise of having some information that she needed to send her from the Philadelphia office, but first needed to confirm that Marion would be in the office on the day the package would arrive. Little did Marion know that the package she would be receiving in January of 1989 would be the child she separated from at birth 30 years earlier. The child she conceived with her married pastor. The child and the secret that she thought she'd never see again.
You have been listening to Secrets of the Churched, Revealed to Heal, a production of Be Inspired Global Media. If you have been burdened with a church secret and want to be free and healed, please email us at mychurchsecret@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at ChurchSecrets1. Look for new episodes of Secrets of the Church every Friday. And remember, you shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free.